For the first time in 3 months of active combat, the United States House of Representatives has voted to force President Donald Trump to stop the war in Iran, and here is the twist that nobody saw coming: some of his own Republicans voted with the Democrats to make it happen. A sitting president, waging a live war, just got rebuked by his own party on the floor of the House. The resolution doesn't end the conflict immediately, but it now heads to the Senate, where a similar measure has already advanced. Tonight, we break down exactly what happened, why it matters, and what it could mean for the Iran war, the midterm elections, and the future of presidential war powers in America. Stay with us, because in the next 7 minutes we are going to walk you through the full picture. We will cover exactly what the War Powers Resolution says and what it actually does, how the vote broke down and which Republicans crossed the aisle, what the polling data tells us about American opinion on Operation Epic Fury, how the Senate could turn this into a real constitutional showdown, and what Republican candidates are quietly saying behind closed doors about the political liability this war is becoming. If you want the full breakdown, hit subscribe and let's get into it. Let's go back to how this unfolded. On June 2, political intelligence outlet Politico obtained audio of Ashley Hinson, a Trump-backed Iowa Senate candidate, privately acknowledging that the Iran conflict could become a, quote, political liability if it stretches much longer. That private admission was a preview of the public earthquake that was coming. By the evening of June 3, the story had broken wide open. According to a report from Al Monitor, the Republican-led House of Representatives had approved a measure forcing President Trump to seek congressional approval for any continued military action against Iran, a rare and direct rebuke to the White House. Multiple outlets confirmed the vote simultaneously. The Associated Press reported the House had, for the first time, passed a war powers resolution to halt military action against Iran. BBC World called it bluntly, a rebuke to Trump. According to posts from its CGTN official, the measure was approved on Wednesday and does not immediately end the conflict, instead now heading to the Senate, where a similar resolution has already advanced but has not yet received a final vote. On the opposition side, Senator Cory Booker framed the bipartisan nature of resistance clearly, posting that the American people want a real end to what he called this reckless war, and vowing to keep voting until the administration is forced to act. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, meanwhile, tied the Iran war directly to a broader narrative, posting that Democrats are fighting against what he characterized as Trump's reckless conflict while Republicans defend executive overreach. Simultaneously, tensions inside the House chamber itself flared, according to Axios, which reported that a separate effort by Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib to also constrain Trump on Lebanon triggered an internal eruption of House tensions. The first question many viewers are asking is, does this vote actually stop the war? The short answer is no, not yet. A war powers resolution passed by the House is a significant political statement, but it does not automatically end hostilities. Under the War Powers Resolution of 1973, Congress has the authority to compel the president to withdraw forces within a defined timeframe, but that requires both chambers to pass the measure and withstand a potential presidential veto. The Senate has advanced a similar resolution, but it has not received a final floor vote. If it passes the Senate, President Trump would almost certainly veto it, and then Congress would need a 2/3 majority to override. That math is extremely difficult. A second pressing question is, why did Republicans cross the aisle at all? On that front, the answer may lie in midterm election arithmetic. Research from the Council on Foreign Relations, citing analysis by expert James Lindsay, indicates that while Republican support for the war remains elevated overall, Republican congressional candidates themselves are increasingly viewing the conflict as a political liability as voters head toward midterm elections in the fall. According to posts from its CFR_org, views on the Iran war continue to break sharply along partisan lines, but the private concerns of candidates like Ashley Hinson suggest that beneath the public unity, anxiety is building. This may suggest that the House vote was less about constitutional principle for some members and more about electoral self-preservation. The broader institutional implication is substantial. Congress is signaling that 3 months of active military engagement without a formal declaration of war is testing the limits of executive authority, even within the president's own party. Some analysts believe this bipartisan crack could widen significantly if the conflict extends into the summer and fall campaign season. Does this House vote actually stop the war in Iran? The resolution is politically significant but legally non-binding until the Senate passes a matching measure and Congress can potentially override a presidential veto, which would require a two-thirds majority that currently appears extremely difficult to achieve. Why did Republican members cross the aisle to vote against their own president's war? CFR analysis and leaked audio from Trump-backed candidates suggest some Republicans may be prioritizing their own electoral survival over party unity, with the Iran conflict increasingly seen as a potential liability in competitive fall races. In the United States, the political fallout from this vote is already rippling across the country. For Republican voters in swing states and competitive Senate districts, the war in Iran has shifted from an abstract foreign policy debate to a concrete kitchen table issue, one that touches military families, energy prices, and the question of whether this administration's foreign policy decisions reflect their values. Trump-backed candidates are now navigating an uncomfortable space between loyalty to the president and the concerns of constituents who want an end to open-ended military commitments. Across the Middle East, the vote lands as a significant diplomatic signal. Iran and regional actors are watching closely to see whether Congress can meaningfully constrain U.S. military posture in the region, even as the conflict itself, referred to in official communications as Operation Epic Fury, remains active. Any signal of congressional fracture could influence the calculations of regional governments and proxies about whether to escalate, negotiate, or wait. In Europe and among NATO allies, the House vote is being read as another indicator of growing U.S. domestic fatigue with overseas military engagements. European governments, already navigating their own defense posture realignments in the post-Ukraine era, may see the congressional pushback as reason to recalibrate expectations of unconditional American military commitment to shared security frameworks. For U.S. military personnel and their families, the vote has a deeply personal dimension. Uncertainty about the duration and scope of the conflict, combined with congressional division over its legal authorization, adds institutional strain to the individuals serving in the theater of operations. To be fair, the administration and its supporters make a serious counter-argument that deserves to be heard. Their position is that the president, as commander-in-chief, has both the constitutional authority and the national security responsibility to conduct military operations against state actors that pose a direct threat to American interests and allies. Secretary of State Marco Rubio appeared before Congress in this period and, according to clips posted by the State Department, was widely credited by commentators on both sides as presenting a composed and substantive defense of the administration's foreign policy approach. The strongest version of the pro-war argument is this: congressional micromanagement of active military operations through war powers resolutions sets a dangerous precedent that could compromise operational effectiveness, signal weakness to adversaries, and embolden state actors like Iran to simply wait out domestic political cycles rather than negotiate in good faith. As at State Department quoted one observer noting, Rubio demonstrated what the administration characterizes as American dominance at the hearing. Here is the unanswered question that will define the next chapter of this story: if the Senate passes the resolution and Trump vetoes it, will enough Republicans in both chambers vote to override their own president? The answer to that question will tell us whether this congressional revolt is a genuine institutional correction or just political theater for the cameras. Drop your answer in the comments right now. Do you think the Senate will pass the Iran War Powers Resolution, and if Trump vetoes it, does Congress have the votes to override? We read every comment.